950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 80, tonight cloudy with a low around 62, and Wednesday sunny with a high around 84. Discover Eat Local Minnesota, your guide to locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. Enjoy high-quality food, unique dining experiences, local foods, and vegetarian options. Every dollar you spend stays local. Check out favorites like Cafe Latte, Maverick's Real Roast Beef, Nightingale, and Vinaigrette. Find a full list at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Tuesday. Matt and Patrick here, our final day here before the Independence Day holiday. We've got some best of all set to go for you, but I got to tell you, I got a humdinger of a show for you today to round things up. First of all, coming up here in about 15 minutes, Cliff Schechter is going to join us from Cliff's Edge YouTube channel. He's got a few quick words to say about the Supreme Court rulings from yesterday. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Paul Nyland from Lifeline Ukraine once again joins us. We did get a full half hour with him today. There's no power blackouts this time, and we were able to chat with him extensively about what is going on right now in Ukraine and the perspective of the war from Kyiv as it's going on there. We also I've got Max Nestorak coming up in the 4 o'clock hour from the Minnesota Reformer to talk about some of their stories, and Brett Johnson here as well. Patrick is here with me. So how are you today, Patrick?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to the extended break.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice little thing. I do not appreciate anyone that makes the comment, well, 4th of July, it's halfway through summer. No, that's like 2 weeks away. We still got a lot of summer to go here. I don't know why did some people say that? We're halfway through summer at the 4th of July. No, we're not. We're halfway through the year, basically, not the summer. Don't harsh my buzz, man. Don't harsh my buzz. I gotta take this first segment, though, to basically try to be the voice of reason. I really do need for everyone to take a few minutes and listen to what I'm about to say here. Because there is only one path out of this. After the disastrous SCOTUS ruling yesterday, where basically he said Emperor Trump can exist. Well, not he, but the 6 conservative justices, in what I'm convinced was a ruling that was handed to them, and they were told, make this happen. I am convinced of that. I'm just as convinced as I am that when Donald Trump ceases to be on this planet, they'll very quickly issue a correction to this ruling and say, oh, by the way, we wanted to revisit this and say, yeah, there is going to be some sort of level of accountability for the president. That was just for Trump. I mean, this was literally a ruling for Trump. When you go down to the 18th page of it and you read that paragraph about you can't factor intent, you can't factor the motive into prosecuting a president for either an act that was official or unofficial. That just tells me, I mean, the reason why that line's in there is because Donald Trump has said repeatedly why he tried to send a mob to overthrow the government of the United States, because he felt as if he was robbed when he wasn't robbed. They had to put that in there because if not for that, then he still could potentially be held accountable. But, yeah. It's interesting today, the day after that SCOTUS ruling, to see the news media and what their focus is, because this is a cataclysmic change in American politics, that no longer is there 3 branches of government, that there is one branch that is overall, that the president of the United States is unaccountable to anyone, basically, that they can do what they want to do. And there are no consequences as long as he says, hey, I thought it was the Constitution telling it. And I have put out example after example of what sort of things this guy could do. And there's no accountability. King Trump should be the thing that scares everybody. But the reality is the news media quickly pushed that story aside. Once again, a Supreme Court ruling on par with Dred Scott, a ruling that was so bad we had to have a civil war to correct it, and constitutional amendments to correct it. They have pushed that aside, and the story that they're focused on is Biden old, Biden old. Biden still was the fourth least offensive person on that debate stage last Thursday. The two clown car hosts over at CNN and Trump both were far worse. And once again, Trump was saying some things which were so outrageous that the news media just doesn't even want to talk about. Because once again, the standard for the news media is no Democrat has ever done anything right. And if they step one step out of line, then they should be removed from office. But Donald Trump can sit over there in the corner, pantsless, eating a tub of paste and talking about sharks. And they go, isn't he a lovable scamp? He'll be great as president again. It's terrifying. Yes, you should be scared to death. That is why I want to make sure you understand something. There is one path out of this. You vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as of right now, is the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And come November, come hell or high water, I'm voting for Joe Biden. He will be the man's name, the president I list on my ballot. That will be it. The left, you need to stop with this idea that there's some sort of other sane option, that I'm going to vote for some third-party candidate. No, that's insanity. That's going to help Trump win. I'm not going to vote in a protest. That's not going to work. That's going to help Trump win. I'm going to vote for Trump. Okay, idiot. No, don't do that. There is one path to preserve democracy come November. Vote for Joe Biden. Is Joe Biden perfect? Not necessarily. Is Joe Biden the best candidate out there? I think he is right now. Absolutely. And he's won the primary. We can have discussions after this is all done about the favoritism that the Democrats somehow play and the idea that somehow, someone of an elderly age, whether or not that should be a negating factor. We can have these discussions, but right now there is no other path. There is no other nominee. There is no one else. It is Joe Biden. So shut up. Have you seen what Trump and the rest of that clown car brigade that is the Republican Party, have you seen what they are going to offer up? Monday's Supreme Court ruling Trump could pursue his plans without fear of punishment or restraint. To hear Trump and his allies tell it, here's how early 2025 would unfold if he wins. They would quickly set up vast camps and deport millions of people in the U.S. illegally. He would invoke the Insurrection Act and use troops to lock down the southern border. And the impacts to the ag sector alone, I guess what they'll do is they'll go back to chain gangs and pull people out of prisons and make them work in fields and work for the ag sector. I guess I have no idea what they're going to do, but the ag sector is going to be irrevocably, damaged by that, because the dirty little secret of America is, well, we love our basically undocumented workers when it comes to stuff like cheap farm food. That's the truth. Trump would move to fire potentially tens of thousands of civil servants using a controversial interpretation of the law and procedure, something that they have bragged about. He'd replace many of them with pre-vetted loyalists who have no experience in their field, but only are there to push Trump rhetoric. He'd centralize power over the Justice Department, historically an independent check on presidential power. He plans to nominate a trusted loyalist for attorney general and has threatened to target and even imprison critics. He could demand the federal cases against him cease immediately. He will pardon January 6 convicts, a promise Trump has made at campaign rallies where he hails them as patriots, not criminals. The investigation of the Bidens would begin. He'd slap 10% tariffs on our most imported goods, which will absolutely wreck our economy, igniting a trade war and risking short-term inflation. He argues it would give him leverage to create better trade terms and benefit customers? No, it won't. Ask England with Brexit. It is costing England £100 billion a month to have left the European Union. It's an absolute disaster. They would basically replace Thomas and Alito, the two elderly conservative justices. This doesn't even include the other things the Project 2025 documents say they want to do. They'll kill public education. You won't have a public school left. You won't. And that's not just for liberals, that's for everybody. They'll kill Social Security. They'll kill Medicaid, Medicare. They'll kill the post office. They've already said their plan is to dramatically raise the taxes on the middle and lower class, and most of this money will not go back to you in a tax break, but will go to the wealthiest people and the biggest corporations as corporate welfare and wealthy people welfare. Yep. Your way of life will cease to exist as you know it, and they will start to round people up. They will. Not just undocumented workers, people like me, people like you. What does your social media pages look like? Has it been all praising of Trump? If not, all of a sudden, expect that knock. We want to talk to you about what you are saying online about our divine leader. That is the world we are looking at. So Joe Biden didn't look the best on that debate. Jeez. He still is far more competent than boat battery shark guy. This is not hard. And I get it. You might be upset about, pick the reason, that the Palestine, or you're not a big fan of spending money in Ukraine, or you wish Donald Trump was being held more accountable. They'd expand out the Supreme Court, that there would be more payoff of college loans. I get it. But if you don't see that your lives will fundamentally change, this country will fundamentally change, people will disappear. If you can't see that train that's coming down the tracks, every light ablazing on that train, honking its horn as loud as you can, saying, "Here we come," and say to yourself, let's flip the track and make sure Joe Biden wins. If you can't do that, I can't help you. But stop with your freaking pity party. There is far more at stake here than whether or not Joe Biden is your favorite candidate. I would like to see the United States of America survive for a few more years. But until that time, I got to hope and pray that enough people realize that, wow, King Trump is a really, really horrible idea. So this is a real simple thing. This is a real easy thing. I need for you to pull up your big boy, big girl pants and vote Democrat, because that's the only path out of this. Cliff Schechter when we come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
I'm no longer.
I'm JP Darbogosian, host of The Gaily Show, celebrating LGBTQ culture and entertainment in Minnesota and beyond. Lyric Arts in Anoka, Minnesota presents Kinky Boots, which debuts on July 12th, with music and lyrics by Cyndi Lauper and a book by Harvey Fierstein. This is a Tony-winning musical. It tells the story of Charlie Price. He's a shoemaker, a struggling one at that, who inherits his family business, which is not going well. Desperate to keep it going, Charlie teams up with the fabulous and the fierce drag queen Lola. Their goal? Create a high-heeled boot for men. This is a show about acceptance and self-expression, and above all, the necessity of a dynamite pair of boots. Kinky Boots opens July 12th. There is an ASL performance on July 21st and a talkback performance on July 28th. For tickets and more information, head to lyricarts.org. This Saturday on This Queer Book Saved My Life, my guest will be James Darville. This episode is a very Minnesotan affair, as the book that saved his life is The Evening Crowd at Kermsers by local Minnesota author Ricardo J. Brown. The book is Brown's memoir, which is all about St. Paul's first LGBTQ bar, Kermsers. On The Gaily Show, Jeopardy winner, author, and teacher Charles Jensen joins me to chat about his new book, Splices of Life, a memoir in 13 film genres. Plus, author and illustrator Robin Easter will be here to discuss their new book, Upstaged, a queer YA graphic novel about theater camp. So tune in this Saturday at 2 p.m., or you can listen to The Gailey Show and This Queer Book Saved My Life everywhere you get your podcast and at am950radio.com. For now, enjoy this hour of The Matt McNeil Show.
Hi, I'm Scott Shambot from Shambot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, shame-free dental office. If you're having a dental emergency, we'll try and get you in the same day you call because we don't like to see anyone in pain. And we'll help you get through every appointment in the most pain-free way possible. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblat Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblatfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
You may have seen a certain truck in videos being shared on social media. How about the truth? I have yet to see any video of that truck outperforming the Toyota Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota. I've driven Sienna since 2006. They handle the highways great, handle back roads, and handle 3 inches of snow a lot easier than the so-called super truck. Plus, my Sienna hybrid is super fuel efficient, tows great, has enough room for tons of gear, and doesn't look like it was drawn by a 6-year-old. Sienna wins. Test drive the top of its class Sienna today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Cliff Schechter, of course, has the YouTube channel Cliff's Edge. He, of course, bringing great content, great insight, great commentary on what's going on in this country. I wanted to give him a chance here before he heads out for his vacation to chime in on the god-awful Supreme Court ruling yesterday. Cliff is joining us from the road today. Hey, Cliff.
Hey, Matt. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Are you headed for Canada now? You're not. You're still in.
I've got my sunglasses on. I'm all hidden. I think I may soon shave my head and grow like a ZZ Top beard. You know, I've got a plan, my friend. I've got a plan. You know, what do you say? The right, you know, as they lie about everything, as they project everything, spent 20 to 25 years now screaming about activist judges. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, we can. You're sounding great.
Good. Screaming about activist judges on the left, the biggest freaking joke. You know, I didn't say the word. It's, you know, while they were busy inventing an interpretation of the Second Amendment that hadn't existed for 200 years, an interpretation of money in politics that hadn't existed in 200 years, overturning Roe versus Wade, overturning voting rights, more recently making themselves the final deciders, not scientists, on regulations, you know, things they don't know a damn thing about when it comes to certain, you know, scientific regulations. I mean, you know, on and on and on, and I've forgotten half the cases where they've been ridiculous and screwed up. And again, the problem is, you know, all of this is in democracies. The main message I want to get across is democracies are overturned because one side plays by the rules and the other refuses to. And one side takes advantage and takes advantage and takes advantage. And yeah, we've fought back a couple of times. And now, luckily, we've got a whole new generation of fighters, you know, and that's what my whole channel is about, highlighting them. And we'll have one coming out in about an hour, and Eric Swalwell, who just ripped the living crap out of a number of House Republicans. But our whole party mentality has to change. We should be running against the Supreme Court right now, pointing out there are 6 extremist partisan Republicans, Brett Kavanaugh, John Roberts, and Coney Barrett all worked on George W. Bush's 2000 campaign. Gorsuch's mom was the frickin' EPA administrator under Reagan. You know, Clarence Thomas, and the biggest joke of all time, was at the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission under Reagan. They worked for Republican presidents and campaigns. They're Republicans in robes, which is what I wish people would call them. And right now, Biden should add to Trump that he is running against fascism. He is running against authoritarianism. He's running against a king. On this 4th of July, we are running against a king again, and people that want to overthrow our democracy, and that now includes the right-wing majority on our Supreme Court. They got there, again, the final thing I'll say before I kick it back to you, they got there by stealing numerous seats, but one of them was, again, because we were asleep at the wheel. We let them get away with it in 2016. because we kind of just figured Hillary was going to win. And it's got to stop. Okay. I liked Biden's speech the other night, but none of this. I don't want to hear any more that, oh, well, we're going to make sure not to use any of the powers. Use the damn powers given to you, not for bad, not for evil. Use them for good. Okay. You have extra powers now to make sure people aren't committing crimes that are friends of Trump's. You have extra powers now to rein in the Supreme Court. Do it. Be like FDR. Stand up and start running against these sons of bitches, if I can say that. And if I can't, sorry, I'll pay the fine.
No, well, but your point is exact. They're risking Biden having this power and ability under the argument of, well, he'll never use it. I mean, Trump will use it, but he'll never use it. And if it's time for Biden, and I think if they're willing to create this level of power, well, by using this power to make a course correction and go back to democracy as it's supposed to be designed, I don't think that that's a big problem. I imagine the Supreme Court's ready to basically say, well, your accountability still is in place, Joe Biden, but not Donald Trump's. But at the same time, use what they're giving you because they're banking on you not doing that.
Yes. If you understand history, you look at these moments, they come along every 60, 70, 80 years because power always wants to win over, and a small elite, whether they be a religious elite, a financial elite, or all of them together, often they're the same, want to tell the rest of us how to live our lives, take our money, and basically have us all be their servants. That is what this is. And you have these 6 unelected right-wing hacks who don't know a damn thing about half the things that they pontificate openly about. They've gotten so many easy facts wrong that you can only imagine what we don't hear that they get wrong. They're all thoroughly corrupt. They accept free flights, free yachts, free trips around the world, free gifts, don't report them, sell their houses to people for inflated prices, don't tell you about it. I go on and on. They have absolutely zero credibility. And there are ways to fight back now. One of them should be make every one of these sons of bitches famous. Okay? They get to walk around their little quiet lives while destroying the rest of ours. If I had the money right now in a super PAC, put their faces everywhere. Make it so, no, I'm not trying to incite violence. In fact, I'd be very clear to people, absolutely not. That's not who we are. But they should not have a quiet meal outdoors for the rest of their damn lives. They should not have a quiet moment for the rest of their damn lives. Make them famous and let people know that's one of the things they're scared of. They want to be able to just walk around in between the raindrops quietly as they destroy the rest of our lives. That's one thing we can do. But Biden can grab this power right now, okay, and just say, hey, I'm a president. I can do anything. You know what I'm doing? I'm changing the Senate rules right now. And the Senate rules are going to be that we're getting rid of the filibuster and the majority rules. Like it was set in the Constitution. There's no filibuster in the Constitution. It never existed. It was an accident of history that Mitch McConnell, one of the other evil 4 horsemen of the apocalypse with John Roberts and Trump and pick your fourth, have used to destroy our democracy. That's what I would use the power for. Get rid of the anti-democratic filibuster and wait until we win a House majority and then go ahead and pass a guarantee Roe, guarantee an assault weapons ban, guarantee climate change legislation, guarantee voting rights to everyone. Make sure these guys can't stop people from voting. All these kinds of things that we can do to strengthen our democracy, close loopholes that they've opened. That is what needs to be done. And if Biden will not use that power, then they're winning their bet. Their bet is we're going to do what we did when we refused to fight them on the Supreme Court justice in 2016 and so many other times when they've thrown tantrums like the little crapistic babies they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to be craptastic, by the way. But
no problem.
Go ahead.
We got about a minute left. There's one path left here. Regardless, vote Joe Biden. You have to vote Democrat because if not, democracy's over.
That's exactly right. Look, nothing has changed fundamentally. Okay? All these polls, Biden in the debate. Still, the fundamentals still are we're kicking butt in every election. People are horrified when they find out about Project 2025. They're horrified by the Supreme Court. They're horrified by the things Donald Trump says he's going to do. So why don't we tell people all of that they're going to do? Tell women they won't have access to birth control in 2 years. Okay? This court, does anybody think this court won't do that after what they've done? Griswold is gone. Tell people what they're going to do, and we will win. And go out and vote and register every person you know.
Cliff, happy Independence Day. May we both have another one in 2025.
I'm going to celebrate this Independence Day with a full assumption that we're going to fight and we're going to have another one. That's what my plan is going to be. So
God bless you.
That's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Cliff Schechter, once again, Cliff's Edge on YouTube. Cliff, all my best. Have a great holiday weekend. We're going to take a break. Come on back. Paul Nyland from Lifeline Ukraine from Kyiv. When we do return, it's the Matt McNeil Show.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Hey, Minnesota, it's your favorite sexy liberal. Join me and my fellow cohorts in liberal justice weekdays from 8 to 11 on AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hey, it's Patrick. The month of July is National Carpet Cleaning Month, and because of that, and because it's the month of the 4th, Zero Res is offering 3 rooms, Zero Resified, starting at just $129, and get a 4th room free. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. Might be wrapping up from graduation season or getting ready to host those summer barbecues, so make sure the inside of your house is Zero Res clean. Zero Res is a 4.9 rating with over 18,000 reviews, and the Zero Res 30-day Gotta Love It guarantee makes it easy to get what you pay for. Schedule your appointment today at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. Again, this month, that's 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $129 and get a 4th room free. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Dr. Stefano Sinacropi, an orthopedic spine surgeon and wellness evangelist, hosting the brand new Recharging the Human Battery show on AM 950 radio. My co-host Mandy Dickey and I will delve into various health topics ranging from medicine to nutrition to exercise, emerging technologies, and yes, some way out there stuff. Will provide a balanced view of today's landscape, helping listeners navigate its complexities and hoping to change the way you think about your health. Recharging the Human Battery debuts on July 6th and airs Saturdays at 11 a.m.
Hi, I'm Bruce Klopfleisch. Join me for the debut of Politics Matters this Sunday at 5 p.m. Each week, we'll dive into more than just presidential politics. We'll prepare you for the 2024 elections and explain why down-ballot races matter just as much. Learn how civics, politics, and law affect you. With a focus on national, state, and local politics, see how government impacts your daily life. Politics Matters with Bruce Klopfleisch debuts on Sunday, July 7th at 5 p.m. Tune in and see why politics matters, even if you don't like politics.
Hi, I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Chad Larson.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Your hosts for Searching for Service. Tune in to Rotary's influential show and podcast, sharing touching stories of service locally and abroad.
We bring you weekly guests that connect, inform, and inspire our listeners on all things service.
We highlight diverse service opportunities that appeal to both Rotarians and people driven to serve in their communities.
Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcast. It's time
to stop searching
and start serving.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 80. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 62. And Wednesday, sunny with a high around 84. Discover Eat Local Minnesota, your guide to locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. Enjoy high-quality food, unique dining experiences, local foods, and vegetarian options. Every dollar you spend stays local. Check out favorites like Cafe Latte, Mavericks Real Roast Beef, Nightingale, and Vinaigrette. Find a full list at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk and in the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Yesterday, we had a very brief interview with Paul Nyland. He's the founder of Lifeline Ukraine. We have talked to him many times. Chicago, you remember we talked to him over the holidays. We've had him on the air 4 or 5 times. We were talking with him, and what is happening in Ukraine is what interfered with the interview. They are having rolling blackouts because the Russians are targeting their infrastructure. The power grid goes down, so they have to have rolling blackouts. We started the interview. The interview ended abruptly, but Paul, you had lost power. What was it? It was a 4-hour stretch there. Is that pretty normal for when the blackouts roll through?
I mean, it can be 4 hours, it can be 5 hours, it can be 2 hours. It just is what it is. I was out today for some meetings. I got back just after 2, and the power came on at about 5 o'clock. So, but what was more interesting, actually, Matt, is the way that you led into that question about, this tactic that Russia is applying now to destroy our energy infrastructure. What you were asking at the beginning of the question was whether this is a sign of desperation, and it is. That's exactly what it is. There are very few tactics that they've got left. They don't have reserves of personnel. They don't have the other kind of material that you would need to prosecute a land war. They're being beaten relentlessly by the Ukrainians, who are taking out vast numbers, like more than 1,000 dead and maimed Russians every single day. Scores of artillery, scores of tanks, scores of APCs, IFVs, everything. So yeah, this is desperation now, trying to get Ukrainians to bow down before this evil regime. Otherwise, they're going to plunge us into darkness. Well, no.
Let's act. But still, you just brought it up. The manpower sacrifice the Russians are doing, where for every, I was reading the square kilometers they picked up, the atrocious loss of life. I mean, this is just Russians. They don't care about human life. They just basically go out and brutalize their own people, and they're doing it. The Ukrainians are doing an exceptional job of holding them back. They, even when they had the advantage without the American weapons and ammunition coming in, they still, even though they were getting a foot a day here or there, it was still coming at such an extraordinary cost because they're just desperate at this point to do anything.
Okay, so 2 points, right? First of all, the delay that came from the Republicans, there was also a small amount of the drawdown authority that President Biden had left over as well. I think about $4 billion. So he actually could have acted. He could have done something, just got something out of the door. We were experiencing tough times. But yeah, I mean, what annoyed me more, I mean, obviously the length of the delay and the costs, therefore, to Ukraine in lost lives, in lost territory, all of that is terrible. The worst thing for me about it is the lies that it was based on. I saw J.D. Vance do an interview on CNN. I wrote an article for Byline Times, taking it apart, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, because the objections that were being raised to the provision of military assistance to Ukraine were absurd. They were based on nonsense and lies. There was another one yesterday that the First Lady, Olena Zelenska, had just bought from American taxpayer money a 4.6 million euro Bugatti car. Like, I mean, who invents this crap, right? But it was, during that debate period, people were talking about Zelensky's ministers going off and buying yachts. Do you know who buys yachts? It's the Russian elite. That's who's buying the yachts. The aid that comes to Ukraine is actually very, very well audited. Very well audited. But the loss ratio per square meter of Russian advance, I was reading, I think you must have read the same thread as me, from Mick Ryan, who's an Australian military professional. So he would, I think the figures were 521 square kilometers of land taken for the cost of 180,000 men.
That's insane.
Which breaks down as 360 men per square kilometer. That's insane.
That is. I mean, ratios. I mean, as I'm a veteran, that kind of loss is something where military leaders would say, okay, this is too much. I mean, that's getting up towards like the worst of Gettysburg and World War I, that, where you're entrenched in those lines and you're getting inches and it's costing everything. As you say, the Russians, they're so determined. Putin is so determined to try to make this a win. I mean, for God's sakes, he's going to go get North Korean weapons. Good luck with that. The slingshots are coming your way. But he's so desperate to win this. It is terrifying to see what this psychopath is doing to his own people. I mean, they've now upped the money because they don't want to do a draft in Russia. They've now upped the money dramatically to try to get people to go in there. But everyone knows if you go in, you're not getting any equipment. You're not getting any body armor. You're not getting any support. It's basically you are there to be a coffin.
and you know, because they don't have equipment to send them out into the battlefield with, why bother training them as well, for example? You know, I mean, no, the insane thing is that they're still able to generate new forces, you know, of something like 25 to 30,000 men every month. Well, that's how many are getting killed, right? So if we're looking at, like, this is already the third cycle of the Russian army that the Ukrainians have gone through so far. It's insane that they can still keep recruiting, but as you mentioned, the money goes up, right? And another statistic that I saw yesterday is that 89% of Russians live below the poverty line by US or European standards. 89% of them. So what choice have they got? What choice have they got? If the only paid and at that well-paid employment is to go and take your chances on the battlefield in Ukraine, if you're an ordinary Russian from the region somewhere and life is pretty crap, it's pretty dire, then that seems like an option, right? But it doesn't last for long.
And they still can't get people. They're rounding up prisoners. They're just basically yanking people off the streets in Russia. I don't want to use this as a way to discount the absolute badassery of the Ukrainian fighting forces. Once again, still one of the greatest, counteroffensives I've ever seen. The ability for not only when you are short on ammunition to not lose massive swaths of land and cost the Russians a heck of a lot of money, but now when you're armed, I've been very impressed lately with the tactic of, and I'm 100%, if they're firing missiles at you from Russia, well, that became a target for you guys. And they have been doing, it seems to be, at least on the international news I'm seeing here, a better job of even putting the Russians back on their heels in Crimea and in the Russian state by firing rounds back at them.
And this summer is going to be very, very hot in Crimea. Very hot. The F-16s will be here soon. I read yesterday that the export control documents have been signed by the Dutch, and so there's 24 planes coming from them. I know that there's planes coming from the Danish and from various other partners as well. And you know, the pilot training is going exceptionally well. But I mean, that speaks to as well, Matt, the way that you're describing the actions of the Ukrainian armed forces as heroic. You know, this is all a matter of necessity. Yeah. I don't believe that this is any longer an existential war for the state of Ukraine. That was, you know, the initial goal that Putin had, and that's long since been beaten. But, you know, the reality is that the Ukrainians have to fight because they are on their land, and it is their people, the liberation of their people that they are fighting for, and it's about to get much worse for the Russians as well. And you know, especially considering how weakened they already are as a military force. When I say it's about to get worse, I mean we're going to see magnitudes of volumes of work worse. But especially what we're going to see over this summer is a massive and sustained air campaign with those very same F-16s all over Crimea. Russia has got 223 military assets dispersed around the peninsula of Crimea. And there is a list of priorities. And we're going to see them in the coming months taken apart, one after the next, after the next, after the next.
How long till the bridge has got to be one of the top ones? I mean, taking out that bridge is really going to cripple the ability of the Russians. I keep waiting for that headline because I want that to happen so damn bad. You take out that bridge, all of a sudden Russia's got a very big problem in Crimea.
The last time we hit it, and I saw a video of, you know, it engulfed in flames, I thought it was CGI. I really didn't believe it at first, but you know, Ukraine has proved already that it can hit this bridge and do damage to it. The question is, what's the right kind of tool to do so? What would be ideal is the Taurus missiles that Chancellor Scholz is keeping for some reason close to his chest and locked up in Germany. They would be a very good weapon for striking the bridge with. The ATACMS, not so much, but Ukraine has been developing its own instruments of war. And one of the other things, again, out of necessity, that Ukraine has done exceptionally well is to innovate throughout this war. And, you know, the drones, the sea drones that have been developed that have removed the Black Sea fleet from the Black Sea. What an accomplishment that is.
Absolutely.
You know, we've just gone through generation after generation of them, and there's nothing that the Russians can do to stop them. And I think it's probably going to be a few of those that will be heavily loaded with explosives that will take out some of the legs of right across the country in so many different fields, in so many different professions and practices. Ukraine is just hero after hero after hero. And I'm grateful to you for pointing that out, as well as for the Civil War history lesson. It's always a pleasure to get that from you when we chat.
I will also, if I can, your drone operators are the best damn drone operators in the world.
Yeah.
You are just schooling those guys, and they do not know what to do about that. We're going to take a break. I want to come on back. I want to just touch briefly on Putin's asinine peace offering that he put out the other day, as well as also I want to take some time and talk about, once again, get back to the people of Ukraine, that not necessarily the fighting, but the home front there, and your observations on that. Paul Nyland from Lifeline Ukraine joining us. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about outdoor fires. Sitting around a fire is the oldest, most basic form of human activity.
What's new is in the way fire is burned. We can show you how to burn cleaner with a lot less smoke.
The radiant heat and light from an open fire is unmatched. It kindles our spirits and connects us to the outdoors. And now it's easier to experience and enjoy.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs wood and gas burning fire pits and fireplaces. Let us help you experience an outdoor fire without all the smoke.
Come see the many ways you can enjoy a fire outdoors.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our live call-in talk show airing every Saturday from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights you need to know to live and age well. Each week, we talk with guests who provide answers to important questions regarding healthcare, elder care, end-of-life care, and self-care for caregivers, and help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
Dr. Stefano Sinacropi, an orthopedic spine surgeon and wellness evangelist, hosting the brand new Recharging the Human Battery show on AM 950 radio. My co-host Mandy Dickey and I will delve into various health topics ranging from medicine to nutrition to exercise, emerging technologies, and yes, some way out there stuff. Will provide a balanced view of today's landscape, helping listeners navigate its complexities and hoping to change the way you think about your health. Recharging the Human Battery debuts on July 6th and airs Saturdays at 11 a.m.
Hi, this is Philip Anthony, the host of the Downright Upright Show, which airs every Saturday at 5 p.m. I interview many interesting Minnesotans and listen to their ideas on how they plan to improve the lives of members of the LGBTQ community and our wider Minnesota community, and then to hear their opinions on current events. Remember, you can listen to the Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony every Saturday at 5 p.m. on radio or wherever you listen to podcasts. So come and join me and continue being fantabulous.
Tune in every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. for a full hour celebrating LGBTQ stories, culture, and entertainment in Minnesota with This Queer Book Saved My Life and The Gaily Show. Can't catch the shows live? Then listen through your favorite podcasting app. Plus, you can watch The Gaily Show anytime on AM 950's YouTube channel or Facebook page. For all the details, visit thisqueerbook.com or am950radio.com. We'll see you Saturdays at 2 p.m. or anytime via podcast, YouTube, or Facebook.
It's the Matt McNeil Show once again on your Tuesday. Paul Nyland from Lifeline Ukraine joining us from Ukraine to talk about what is going on there right now. The other day, Putin came out with this just jackassian peace offer where he says, well, you just let us keep what we've already taken and we'll call it even. Not only is that just ignorant, because how in the hell is he even going to hold those lands? Because the last time I checked, the people that he's occupying don't want him there. But it's also just so disingenuous and just so slimy to kind of put that out there, acting like that's some sort of, olive branch to the Ukrainians.
It was worse than that. It was worse than that. He didn't just say, I'm keeping these lands that I'm currently on. He also demanded the remaining territory of the oblasts in the south, Kherson and Zaporizhia, that have been occupied since the beginning of the full-scale war, right? And so that includes the capitals of both of those regions, right? The city of Kherson, which was liberated already, and we saw great scenes from there the day that it was liberated, right? It was occupied for 8 months, and CNN and ABC, they were amongst the first to be in there with the first troops, and they just saw scenes of utter jubilation. So Putin wants that back, and he wants the city of Zaporizhia as well, which he's never controlled. And the combined population of the two cities is 1 million people. It was worse than asinine. And of course, obviously one of his conditions there was the end of all sanctions. So that's it. Just bygones be bygones. it was what it was. We keep what we've stolen. End of all the sanctions. And as I just tweeted before I came on here, actually, presumably this, getting away with it scot-free from their perspective would also mean, the dropping of the arrest warrants for Putin and his chief child snatcher and the Minister of Defense, former Minister of Defense, the chief of the general staff. They were indicted last week as well. And no war crimes at tribunals and no reparations or anything like that. No.
It's been painful to watch. It was painful from this perspective to watch the Republicans stall this thing with Russian talking points. That just angered me greatly. But what gives me hope is the Ukrainian people as you talked about, they're trying to keep these infrastructure things up and going, dealing with these power outages, other things. You were talking about this when the power went out yesterday. It's the bravery, the hardiness of the standard Ukrainian right now. It can't be denied because they're still looking at these Russians and still standing up to these big bad guys and frankly staring them down. And whether that's the front lines or the people in your town or any of the cities around Ukraine, it's very heartwarming to see such resilience in the face of such evil.
To experience it, Matt, is truly an honor. It's truly a privilege, and this is now. I'm 21 years. I've lived here in Ukraine and lived amongst these people, and I've seen them do things on Maidan during revolutions that just they took my breath away at times with the way that they carried themselves, the way that we called the revolution of 2013 and 2014 the revolution of dignity, and that word dignity, that it was the way that Ukrainians manifested themselves throughout this constant threat from the authorities at the time of the constant attempts to clear Maidan with force and so on and so on. And we stood up to all of that, and we stood up to it for 93 days. It was a massive accomplishment. And then as a result of that, we are rewarded by Putin with war, with a decade of war. And Ukrainians continue with that same dignity that we are a proud nation. We are Ukrainians. We are very separate and distinct from Russians in many ways. It's not just a matter of language. It's not just a matter of culture. It's a matter of values. This is the key thing that most people can't understand. And as you asked, or put it in your question as well, as last time you checked, the people who are Ukrainians in occupied Russia, they don't want to be occupied by Russia. And you're exactly right. And it's because of this different set of values. Russians know that they don't have a democracy. They don't care that they don't have a democracy. Over the last couple of decades, their thinking has been so vastly altered that it doesn't matter to them that they're not a democracy. To Ukrainians, democracy is a sacred thing. We fought for it on the Maidan. We insist on it. We insist that the presidents, the leaders of our communities in our country and our government be the people who are chosen by Ukrainians. And we'll make mistakes as we go along, and we will correct them at the next opportunity at the ballot box. That is the fundamental difference between Ukrainians and Russians. That's why Ukrainians cannot be left in the occupied territories to be subjected to a fascist, anti-democratic, brutal regime that wants to eliminate this nation and this entire identity of. I'm wearing a T-shirt now which says I'm Ukrainian, right? Mm-hmm. This was made famous by Zelensky. I don't know if you saw his. My next guest needs no introduction with Dave Letterman, right? But Zelensky was wearing exactly this T-shirt with these letterings, "I'm Ukrainian," when he did that interview, and it is something that they are rightly proud of. And what we should talk about too is the future as Ukraine rebuilds after the success, after the victory. The people of this country are going to have even more reason to be proud of what they've done and where they're going and how this country is developing. And I'm going to be again privileged. I hope, touch wood, that I'll be here to witness all of that and see this next stage of Ukraine's great story being written.
As we get ready to celebrate Independence Day here in the United States, it's not independence for you. It's just kick those bastards out of your country, man. So I can't wait we'll have that holiday. And considering I see Ukrainian logos everywhere, rural America, metro areas, I think a lot of people are on your side. Lifeline Ukraine, which you founded, once again, offering mental health services, suicide prevention for military veterans, soldiers, their families, and basically any Ukrainian worldwide. Lifeline Ukraine needs your donation. If you can make a donation, I'll put a link out there to Lifeline Ukraine. Please make a donation, help keep them going. Paul, all my best. Thank you so much for the time today. We'll check in before too long again, okay?
Thank you so much, man. I always enjoy chatting with you. Take care, man.
It's an absolute privilege to chat with you, an absolute privilege. Chicago, have a good one. We'll talk to you in a week. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2. That's coming up next.
When was the last time you had your roof inspected for extreme weather and hail damage? This is Chad, owner of AM 950, to talk about the exterior construction company I trust, Snap Construction. If you've noticed new roofing projects in your neighborhood, your home was likely hit by hail last summer and experienced damage. Snap Construction is helping homeowners like you, and they're the roofing specialists I trust. They are the most well-reviewed contractor in the Twin Cities and have a ton of positive customer reviews from homeowners just like you. Even better, Snap Construction's installations are backed by a lifetime warranty, so you know you're dealing with a qualified roofing expert. You want to work with a company that will be here for a long time after the work is done. Snap Construction has handled thousands of claims and will help you through the process. Do yourself a favor and get a free roofing inspection so you have the facts and peace of mind you deserve. Call Snap Construction today at 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com.
Standing Up to the Hatriots, the David Pakman Show, weekdays at 2 p.m. on AM 950 KTNF St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Congressman Lloyd Doggett from Texas is the first Democrat to publicly call for President Biden to step down as the party's nominee. It follows the president's performance last week in the debate in Atlanta. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the president isn't going anywhere.
We get it. We get what Americans are feeling. That's why he's acknowledging he's not a young man. That's why he's acknowledging he's a little slower than he used to be in walking and not as smooth as speaking. We get that. But we also want to make sure that we point to the successes that he's had.
Earlier, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told MSNBC she believes it is a legitimate question whether Biden's halting performance is just an episode or a condition. Tomorrow, President Biden meets with governors, including Tim Walz from Minnesota.
Talk turned a little bit to what was obviously a poor performance in last Thursday's debate, and governors are asking questions about what is the plan, how are you going to do this, how are you going to message this.
Stocks finished the day higher, more records. It was helped by comments from Fed Chair Jerome Powell that inflation is easing. He did not give a timetable for an interest rate cut. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says more is on the way to help Ukraine.
I am proud that the United States will soon announce more than $2.3 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine.
Austin met at the Pentagon with Ukraine's defense minister. The aid includes anti-tank weapons, interceptors, and munitions for Patriot and other air defense systems. Sentencing for former President Donald Trump in his hush money trial in New York is being pushed back to September. It follows the Supreme Court ruling yesterday on presidential immunity. Former New York mayor and former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani says he isn't surprised he lost his law license in his hometown, claiming in a post on X the case against him was based on an activist complaint replete with false arguments. This is AP News.
If you're looking for a new couch, you could cut down on expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive. Because you know you've had this couch for too long. Sure, you've had good times together, but a ripped-up cushion is not a fond memory. It's a sign. Notice how other people have couches with 2 armrests? Now that's living, right? No, it's just normal. So bundle your renters and car insurance with Progressive and put the savings toward a new couch. Please, it's time. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states.
Summer. What's not to love? Well, maybe not the scorching temperatures. Every day can't be 75 degrees with a breeze. So I went to Kohl's and stocked up on looks that'll keep me and my husband cool all season long. I got 20% off already great prices on linen dresses, cute jumpsuits, and comfy polos. Plus, I saved $15 because I spent over $75. And I earned Kohl's cash. So bring on the summer heat. We're ready to weather it in style. All thanks to Kohl's. Select styles. Offers end July 7th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com.
Hi, my name is Katty from Minnesota Recovery Connection.
And I'm Erin with Minnesota Recovery Connection.
We'd like you to listen to our show, Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. It is on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on AM 950.
On the show, we discuss topics about addiction, understanding substance use disorder, the many pathways to recovery, and finding your personal journey.
Listen to Redefining Recovery Saturdays at 10 a.m. and find our podcast on your favorite app.
Hi, I'm Bruce Klopfleisch. Join me for the debut of Politics Matters this Sunday at 5 p.m. Each week, we'll dive into more than just presidential politics. We'll prepare you for the 2024 elections and explain why down-ballot races matter just as much. Learn how civics, politics, and law affect you. With a focus on national, state, and local politics, see how government impacts your daily life. Politics Matters with Bruce Klopfleisch debuts on Sunday, July 7th at 5 p.m. Tune in and see why politics matters, even if you don't like politics.
Exciting news! The Being Curious Show is undergoing a transformative shift, transitioning to a podcast-only format. Join us on all major podcast platforms at the Edge Network for access to enlightening and curious conversations. Don't miss a single episode as we delve into thought-provoking discussions. Embrace the transformative and stay tuned for an immersive auditory experience that sparks curiosity. Subscribe on your preferred podcast platform now. Be a part of the Being Curious Show, here, there, and everywhere.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 80. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 62. And Wednesday, sunny with a high around 84. Discover Eat Local Minnesota, your guide to locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. Enjoy high-quality food, unique dining experiences, local foods, and vegetarian options. Every dollar you spend stays local. Check out favorites like Cafe Latte, Mavericks Real Roast Beef, Nightingale, and Vinaigrette. Find a full list at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show here on your Tuesday. Matt, Patrick, Brett here today. Brett Johnson has stepped on into the studio. Hi, Brett. How are we today?
Hey, good. How about you?
I'm fine. I'm going to do some grill. Are you grilling or going to be going to someone's house that is grilling this 4th of July?
Not planning on it. No.
Patrick, how about you? Any grilling plan for you today?
It might be boiling, maybe not so much grilling, but there will be
boiling. Wait, okay, stop. What is this, Scotland? It's boiling. What are you going to be boiling?
I'll just put the hot dogs on the stove. Well, maybe I'll do some burgers on the stovetop.
There you go.
That's about where I might go to. Yeah.
I got ribs tonight. I'm going to have burgers on Thursday. I should say ribs and asparagus, because we're kind of at the tail end of the asparagus right now. Have you noticed it's kind of starting to fall off? But still, I love grilled asparagus. That's one of my favorite things on the planet. I'm going to do on the 4th of July. I'm doing the cake where you put the Cool Whip on top and you put the berries like it's a flag. I'm going to feel like I've done an art project. I got to do that. It is July 2nd. Now, I last night took some time to rewatch Ken Burns' Civil War, namely the Gettysburg part, because that was July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. So that would be, if my math is correct, it is the 161st anniversary of what we can say the day that the state of Minnesota saved the Union. So once again, and I want to give, this is Twins Almanac posted this out, numbered at least 6-1. It was more than 6-1. I think this was closer to like 8 or 9-1. The 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry suffered 82% casualties when they heroically charged headlong into the enemy forces to shore up the gap in Union lines during the Battle of Gettysburg on this date in 1863. If you have not seen, there are some very good videos on YouTube which show the battle. Sickles was an idiot. Sickles was the guy that took all the troops down into the peach orchard and the wheat field and the Devil's Den and all that stuff. Basically way overextended the Union lines and got caught with his pants down. And once again, there is this gap there. There is and I've talked about this before, there's a Massachusetts infantry or artillery group, so cannons, who were quite literally, they need a lot of credit too. They were getting picked off, and they are running back with their cannons, firing basically straight into the Confederates as they're basically trying to find anyone to back them up. Well, the one general comes on down, says, "Who are you guys?" Well, the 1st Minnesota. Get in there and stop what is a massive line of Alabama guys. It was the Alabama 9th, Alabama 11th, Alabama 14th, Alabama 8th. They're all part of a Virginia unit, the Army of Northern Virginia. That's why the flag at the Capitol is a Virginia flag. Well, there you go. So even though we kind of took it to the Alabama boys, that's why we have a Virginia flag. So they go in. It's 7:15 in the evening tonight. They charge in, and it is literally 4 units. Here it comes, and it wasn't even the complete Minnesota 1st. I think Company F was out as a reserve. So it was the other company. I think another unit was actually detached to another unit. It wasn't even a full company. They send them on in. Go team, go. And in 5 minutes, they're just, chaos ensues. They're taking on all these guys. They basically hold them back. The Alabama 9th, what would be on the Confederate left flank, the American right flank, because it is the Americas versus the traitorous Confederates. They tried to do the thing that happened up on Round Top, where they do the wagon wheel, they spin it on down. Here comes the Company I from the Minnesota First Minnesota. Company I from First Minnesota runs out there, holds them. We're talking 10 minutes total. Just once again, the largest loss of life ever of any unit in the United States military, and the unit still survived at the end of the day. The role these brave Minnesotans played in preserving the United States cannot be overstated. General Winfield Scott Hancock said that no soldiers in any field and in this or any other country have ever displayed grander heroism. He insisted that there is no more gallant deed recorded in history. In a speech in Cannon Falls on the 4th of July in 1928, President Calvin Coolidge said these men's heroism that day entitled them to be ranks of the saviors of the country. When you think we're going to have a lot of parades and stuff going around in the state of Minnesota, and there's always some freaking idiot that puts up a Confederate flag. Now, putting up a Confederate flag on the 4th of July is, I get you think you're being clever, but if you do that in Minnesota, you are spitting on the graves of all those veterans. Someone had a picture. I saw this. It might be here. It was a picture of the gravestone. One of the gravestones out. I believe it's at Gettysburg, and all it says is 50 Minnesotans. That's all it says. It just says 50 Minnesotans, all in one grave out there at Gettysburg. I mean, that kind of. I mean, that is an amazing level of loss, and I kind of tell the truth. 52 bodies. It's a gravestone out of Gettysburg. It says Minnesota. All it says is Minnesota. 52 bodies. I didn't see that when I was out at Gettysburg. If I would have lost it. I just would have lost it. The Minnesota Memorial is the only one that's bigger at Gettysburg is Pennsylvania's, which makes sense. And Pennsylvania is actually quite impressive, but Minnesota's is the next, and it's at the point where they ran into that line. It's unbelievable. You don't fly the Confederate flag in Minnesota if you know anything about the 1st Minnesota. And, don't tell me about this. It's Southern pride. No, you want to go move. I don't want anything to do with you, because that's not us. The survivors of the 1st Minnesota, by the way, and then helped repel Pickett's charge. They lost another 17 killed or wounded. All the officers but one was killed in those 2 days. All the officers but one. They were down to a very few people left, but they survived. Minnesota's possession of the bloodstained, bullet-pierced Virginia battle flag captured on July 3rd. Once again, even though we took on a bunch of Alabama guys, they were part of the Army of Northern Virginia. That's why we have the Virginia flag. Virginia's wanted it back for 100 years. Boo-hoo! Guess what? You ain't getting it back. It's our flag now. Ventura responds to the White House in 2000. Why? I mean, we won. We took it. It makes it our heritage, which I could not agree with. Of all the things Jesse ever did while as governor, that was about the best one.
One of the smarter things. Good quote.
Yeah. So there you go. I can't remember. Have you been to Gettysburg?
I have not. No.
It's worth going. It's worth going, but it's remarkable. If you get the chance, you can't get it out to Gettysburg today. I mean, it's a bit of a commute. If you can't get out there, go to YouTube and you can type in 1st Minnesota battle map, and it will come up with videos, and it shows you how the 1st Minnesota insanity, and they did it. And I was talking to Paul Nyland last hour about Ukraine, and I said necessity leads to heroism. That was the epitome of that. There was a need. The Union lines were going to fall if not for the 1st Minnesota, because it was too big of a hole. 1st Minnesota goes in there, punches the Alabama boys right in the face, and holds the line by necessity. And it clearly made heroism out of that. Absolutely. I can't even. I mean, I'm a vet, And I knew that, you always, when you're in the military, you understand stuff like this. Is like, you get sent in, you got to go. I can't even comprehend. I can't even comprehend. It's like, see all those guys? Yeah, go get them. And they went. And no one batted an eye. They all went.
They probably had a pretty good indication of how things were going to go as well, that most of them were not going to survive when they were called up, and they still went ahead and did their duty and saved the Union.
And if I can, I want to give salute out where salutes belong. The 111th New York, the 105th Pennsylvania. They came to our rescue. The reason why any of our guys got out of there is the New York guys came in on the south side. The Pennsylvania guys came in, and it scared the Alabama boys. They ran back. What was left of them. They ran back. Pennsylvania basically hounded back, got in position, fired on it, and allowed us to get back to the line. So 105th Pennsylvania, 111th New York. Salute. Thank you very much for helping out the survivors of that. But that was just it's I do not tolerate the Confederate flag. Do you go? Dinah's got the 4th of July parade. Who else has do we know anyone else that has a 4th of July parade?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Yeah, I know which one you're talking with, the Edina one.
The Edina was a nice one.
Yeah.
It's it's Edina. We're not going to have one of those inferior parades. I might go catch the parade, but like I said, if I do, it's just going to be for a little bit. Because I got burgers to grill.
Yeah.
I got the family coming
Important
over.
stuff, yes.
Yeah. We are done here today. This is our last live show of the week. We've got 2 humdinger of shows coming up for you tomorrow and on the 4th. And then this show, we're actually re-airing. Hi, Friday. This is a preview. We're re-airing this show on Friday as well.
Yeah, so hello to everyone listening on Friday as well.
This is a brand new show on Friday. Yeah, that's what it is. Parts of this program may be pre-recorded. All right. There's a reason we put that in there. No Cooligan. Apparently, he's running off to the grill at this point. But you did get Max Nestorak from Minnesota Reformer, correct?
We did. Always a good backup to have Max Nestorak on. Yes, we're
Indeed.
talking about some labor news, including what's happening with Amazon and some violations they had at their
Yeah.
warehouse in Shakopee. Also, Minneapolis Police Union contract going to be talked about as well. So he does a nice job writing what's called the break room over at Minnesota Reformer, which highlights a lot of the labor news going around town. So mainly what we'll be highlighting today.
Max Nestorak with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, today we are joined by Max Nestorak, who is the deputy editor of the Minnesota Reformer, who reports on labor and housing, as we're going to be talking about some of the labor news that he has been working on, including an update on the Minneapolis Police Union contract, which we chatted about with Max the last time we had him on. We'll also be talking about how Amazon's Shakopee facility may have been violating some of Minnesota's warehouse worker safety laws. Plus, we'll be talking about this case that has to do with a company called Environmental Stoneworks and some potential violations they've had with mistreating Latino workers as compared to white workers. So lots to get to today. Max, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start off talking about Environmental Stoneworks. So Latino workers for a subsidiary of the largest manufacturer of exterior building products in North America say they were paid less than white workers because they were immigrants, and allege that Environmental Stoneworks, the company we're talking about, had misclassified scores of workers to avoid paying overtime, among other benefits. And many projects the company has worked on have received significant tax breaks as well. So Max, let's talk a little bit about some of these specific disparities in treatment and pay between Latino workers and their white counterparts, as reported by Angel Torres and some other workers at this company. Let's talk about how they say they're being mistreated as compared to their white counterparts.
Sure. Yeah. So, one worker worked in Environmental Stoneworks' factory in North Branch, which makes these stone brick veneer facades. The company also installs them. So there's kind of 2 aspects to this company. It's vertically integrated. And so one worker who worked in the factory for nearly 15 years said he noticed disparities in pay between immigrant Latino workers and their white counterparts, just because, people talk about their pay with each other. He's been there a long time. He rose to be a foreman. And so he said that not only were white workers paid a couple dollars more per hour than non-white workers, but they also got more breaks. And he said when he raised this issue with his boss told him that Americans were not used to working as hard as Latinos. And so he continued to raise, he says, issues, concerns about this disparate treatment. And ultimately, he was let go in December, he thinks, because of him speaking out about this. And so he was let go. And then he said other workers kind of staged a strike, a protest because of his termination. And then when they did return to work, they were let go. And he said because those workers were told, because they found out some of them were undocumented. He says, the company knew that many of them were undocumented before them. So retaliation on top of retaliation by his account.
I want to bring this up too because nearly a quarter of construction workers in Minnesota, which is about 30,000 people, are misclassified or paid off the books. And as we kind of talked about in this case, it's really hard to have any sort of recourse to try to report these violations other than talking to your union, or in this case, going to the media and trying to get support with what's happening, because there are a lot of challenges that these workers face when trying to report some of these issues with management. Can you talk about that aspect as well?
Yeah, so, misclassification, if you talk to worker advocates and labor unions, is just rampant in the non-union construction industry. And misclassification happens when employers call workers independent contractors rather than employees. If you're an employee, you're entitled to all sorts of protections and benefits, from a minimum wage to overtime to workers' compensation insurance to unemployment insurance. And what we see in the construction industry is often a fissured and layered system where there's a general contractor who hires contractors, who hires subcontractors, who hires other subcontractors, who hires workers who may call each individual worker a subcontractor. And so the workers actually swinging the hammers and hanging the drywall don't have protections in the event of injuries, while the companies save money on not having to pay taxes and insurance premiums. So one worker said he knew of someone who was injured on the job and struggled to get compensation for that injury. So it's a large issue, and it's something that the state has tried to go after more in recent years. So this year, the legislature passed a law that increases the penalties just for misclassification, and also streamlines the test used to determine if someone is an independent contractor, to make it a little bit easier to for workers to assert their rights.
So could some of those new laws that were passed by the legislature impact the situations that we're seeing right now with environmental stoneworks? I'm curious if potentially these workers could see some contribute or get compensated for some of the pay they may have missed, or could get remedied for the situations they ran into from some of these new laws that were passed by the state legislature.
Yeah, that's a good question. The union LIUNA, Minnesota, North Dakota, which represents more than 13,000 construction workers, has helped advocate for these workers. And they say that the Department of Labor and Industry, as well as the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, have received complaints from these workers about misclassification, wage theft, and racial discrimination. So it's possible that either of those agencies, through their efforts, could recover back wages if they determine that what the workers allege has happened is indeed what happened. So that remains to be seen. Another law that the legislature passed is it requires apartment buildings that receive state subsidies or low-income housing tax credits to be built, that they have a prevailing wage. And I don't think that would apply in this situation, because it took effect. It depends on when you applied for funding, and I'm assuming this project applied for that LIHTC credit before this law took effect. But even so, news conference last week with Democratic lawmakers, union officials, and workers who say they were mistreated, they, just again called out that the state should not be providing tax subsidies to contractors who use employers with checkered paths of labor violations. So lawmakers and the union say Environmental Stoneworks is one of the worst actors, known to misclassify workers and not pay overtime, especially to immigrant workers. However, I did check with the Department of Labor and Industry to see what past violations do you have for Environmental Stoneworks or its parent company, and I was told they didn't have anything on file. So it doesn't appear to me that state regulators have actually cited Environmental Stoneworks for labor violations, at least in recent years.
They can read more about what's happening with Environmental Stoneworks and some of these violations that have been alleged against them with how they treat Latino workers versus white workers over at MinnesotaReformer.com. That's MinnesotaReformer.com. And sticking on the topic of labor violations with big companies, we're going to talk about Amazon now, because Amazon's Shakopee facility is facing over a $10,000 fine for alleged worker safety standards. Now, this is something you guys reported on at the Minnesota Reformer last fall about these violations with potential worker warehouse safety law violations that were recently passed. So I'm curious, just to back up, what were some of these violations? Because it sounds like a big part of this was a lack of communication from Amazon to their workers about, for instance, what was on their work quota versus what workers were allowed to do when it came to breaks and other aspects of their job, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So there were two citations from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry through its Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And I should note right off the bat that Amazon is appealing these citations and contests them. They're both, one is for alleged worker safety hazards, specifically ergonomic safety hazards. And the other is for not telling workers what quota they're being held to as required under a new warehouse worker safety bill passed by lawmakers last year. So just to dig into the first one about workplace worker safety hazards, it's a little bit light on details in terms of the citation, but the agency says that the company did not do a good enough job making sure that workers are safe from, repetitive stress injuries through their work, which is really common in warehouses, especially Amazon warehouses, where you're lifting boxes, picking, sorting items, walking miles across hard concrete floors. There's surveys that show, lots of workers have to take days off for injuries or just being exhausted from the work. And the second citation about not telling workers their quota, lawmakers passed this last year with the rationale that if workers are being, if their productivity is being monitored and they're being held to a standard, they need to know what that standard is and they need to know what their data is. And this is really specific to Amazon in that we know Amazon tracks workers' movements down to the second, and they track when workers are having time off tasks. And so lawmakers wanted to protect against a work speed up where the quotas are set higher and higher and workers don't really know what they are, but just have to keep working faster and faster, which would lead to more injuries. Now, Amazon says that this citation fundamentally misunderstands how they set quotas. They say they don't have set quotas for workers. It sounds like it's kind of a moving target that couldn't be easily disclosed to workers. So I guess their defense is, we don't have a set quota, therefore we can't tell workers what it is. But it is clear that Amazon does have productivity goals for workers. So it remains to be seen how, let's say, agencies and perhaps the courts handle this issue. And I can just read the quote from the Amazon spokeswoman that says, quote, Amazon's employee performance guidance at our operations facilities is based on safe and achievable expectations that take into account employee time and tenure, peer performance, and safe work practices. So again, that reads to me like it's kind of a moving target that's different for each worker. But again, like if you think about the point of the law, which was to prevent a speed up and to give workers information to know what targets they're having to hit, I think, lawmakers say Amazon should be disclosing what that is.
I want to report on one other story from the break room, which, by the way, you can find every week on MinnesotaReformer.com with some of the latest news on labor news. I want to talk about the Minneapolis Police Union contract because this is an update to what we talked about a few weeks ago when we last spoke, and that is the new Minneapolis Police Union contract because currently the Minneapolis City Council has not committed to approving those 22% pay increases for police officers. And in fact, looking at some of these pay increases, starting pay for new officers in Minneapolis would be even higher than what you have in Los Angeles and New York. So just to back things up a little bit, let's talk about how supporters of this pay increase are justifying, well, why starting police officers should be getting this higher pay versus also, well, some of what critics are saying as to, well, why Minneapolis police officers shouldn't quite be seeing this steep of a pay increase. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the main argument in support of these pay increases is that the department has dwindled down to just over 500 officers from its peak of about 900 since the police killing of George Floyd. And so proponents say, the only way we're going to be able to recruit more workers, more police officers, is by raising wages. So it's as simple as a supply and demand issue. You got to raise prices to get or raise salaries to get more interest. Opponents say, they point to the department's, many settlements for misconduct and the court-ordered, court-sanctioned monitoring for civil rights violations, and they see this as an unfair reward to a department that's poorly managing police misconduct, and say, why would we shower more resources on a department that is already bleeding the city dry by way of police misconduct settlements and PTSD claims? So that's where we're at, kind of like at a fever pitch disagreement over what police officers should make. And I think I may have told you last time that we expected it to go before the council quickly. Well, it actually was delayed until mid-July, as far as I know, to give the public more time to weigh in on this. It's hard to say what's going to happen. I mean, I think there's many on the council who are opposed to these raises, but it's going to be challenging also to reject it and go back to mediation. The city and the union have been trying to hammer out a deal for months and months now. So it's what that means if the council rejects it, and you have to go back to the drawing board. Now, I'll also mention that proponents, including Mayor Fry, has said that there is some police accountability aspects in here, including allowing the police chief to pay officers under investigation for serious misconduct on leave for up to 180 days. So give them some more wiggle room, but opponents say it's just not enough accountability.
And as you said, it sounds like we're going to have more hearings until about mid-July, so no decision will necessarily be made before then. But as we talked about, where you're kind of alluding to, this could create kind of a messy situation if the council does decide to reject this contract.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm just waiting to see what happens with that. My colleague Dina Winter has been all over it, covering this story, and she'll be continuing to report on it.
So make sure you follow along MinnesotaReformer.com, and make sure you check out the break room over at MinnesotaReformer.com. A good wrap up and kind of rundown of all of the labor news that's happening in Minnesota. Well, you have been speaking with Max Nesterak, who is the deputy editor of the Minnesota Reformer, who reports on labor and housing. Again, make sure you go to minnesotareformer.com. Max, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
You want a fast way to save some money? It's easy with Rudy Luther Toyota. Start with the Luther Advantage Card. With every new and used vehicle purchased, you'll get 3 years of 10 cents off per gallon of gas at Holiday Station stores, as well as $6 off the Works car washes. That's a lot of savings, especially when you tag that with the incredibly fuel-efficient Toyota hybrid models. Buying at Rudy Luther Toyota makes you a smart shopper. Find out all the details about the Luther Advantage Card, including all the ways you can save, by visiting Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, I'm Frank Brown, owner of the only minority-owned union print shop in Minnesota.
Do you work with political campaigns?
Yes, we have years of experience helping campaigns.
Do you print postcards? Do you also mail them out?
Yes, we do mail them out. We print everything.
Do you print lawn signs?
Yes, we print everything. Choose the only minority-owned union print shop in Minnesota for all your political campaign needs. Learn more at mpuptown.com. Minuteman Press Uptown. We print everything.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Join the community spirit at Four Sisters Farmers Market, a seasonal hub for cultural placemaking, food access, and Indigenous values. Four Sisters Farmers Market has always emphasized their commitment to the community and inclusivity, accepting SNAP and EBT benefits. Stop by and get affordable, healthy, and culturally appropriate local food. Four Sisters Farmers Market is open Thursdays 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and is located on the American Indian Cultural Corridor off of Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis. Discover more about Four Sisters Farmers Market on their social media accounts.
Minnesota summers are the best. We get outdoors and enjoy the sun and fire up the barbecues. This is Chad, owner of AM 950, to tell you about the exterior construction company that I trust, Snap Construction. As great as Minnesota summers are, they also bring extreme weather, storms, and hail. Late last summer, we were hit with a string of severe weather, including hailstorms. Those storms damaged roofs across the metro. Most storm damage goes missed by the untrained eye. A lot of homeowners didn't get their roofs inspected for damage and could potentially be facing much larger issues down the road. Please take my advice and call the roofing specialist I trust, Snap Construction, to schedule a free roofing inspection. If your roof was damaged, they will work with you and your insurance company to fix it quickly and efficiently. Call Snap Construction today at 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP, or visit snapconstruction.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Mostly cloudy overnight with a low of 62, then Wednesday sunshine with a high of 84. Enjoy the best of summer with a neat local Minnesota restaurant or food purveyor. They're perfect for any occasion, a night out, or a great meal at home. Check out the list of Eat Local Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors at eatlocalminnesota.com.
If I were a human being.
AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. By the way, one of the more underrated Disney films, The Princess and the Frog. As a matter of fact, we have this great debate whether or not it's Tangled or Princess and the Frog is the best, because they're both exceptional. If you're an adult and you want to enjoy a cartoon, watch either one of those. There you go. There's my hint if you get a rainy day. Which, by the way, did you see the weather forecast for the 4th of July? It looks like it's going to rain all day.
Yeah, it's no good. I'm supposed to be at the Twins game. That's a 1:00 start, so I'm hoping it holds off.
Well, they're getting to the point now where they can't really start putting too many of these games off. So if it's like a light drizzle, they're playing baseball at this point. A few bits of news here I want to touch on here before we wrap up for the week. First of all, U.S. Parole Commission has denied release for Leonard Peltier, 79-year-old member of American Indian Movement, convicted of murdering 2 FBI agents during a shootout at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Peltier, who has maintained his innocence during his 47 years in prison, 47 years, appeared before a parole hearing last month at the federal complex in Coleman, Florida, northwest of Orlando. His next opportunity for parole is June 2039. So this is basically, unless he is pardoned, it is a death sentence for him at this point. He is not going to ever get out of prison. In 1973, Native Americans led by the American Indian Movement occupied Wounded Knee, South Dakota over Indian rights issues in a historic standoff with federal authorities. In 1974, 2 AIM leaders, Dennis Banks and Russell Means, went on trial in federal court in St. Paul. The trial ended when the U.S. District Judge Fred Nickel dismissed the charges, citing government conduct. Basically, the government was so wrong in those cases. And just, yeah, if you read about this whole thing, I mean, that was just an absolute joke, and the judge did the right thing. The following year, special FBI agents Jack Collar and Ronald Williams were shot while driving separate cars in pursuit of a robbery suspect on the reservation. A gunman then shot and killed the agents at close range. The FBI said that gunman was Peltier. His supporters have long held that prosecutors only showed that he was present at the shootout, not that he fired the fatal shots, which, once again, there's a big freaking difference between that. Our position is that you've got a conviction on a seriously flawed set of facts, Sharp said, the lawyer, in an interview last month. You have a conviction that is seriously tainted with the investigation and prosecutorial misconduct, yet Leonard Peltier has spent over half his life in prison. I have been very clear on this. I don't think Leonard Peltier did it. I do not think Leonard Peltier did this. And here is where, for me, this upsets me that he is, A, not being released, and B, the FBI is not admitting their mistake. Someone did shoot those FBI agents. And they have, well, there's a decent chance they could have passed away already, but they have not been held accountable. And this is the mistake that flawed law enforcement, and many of the times flawed because of racial elements, this is the mistake that's unforgivable. You're locking up somebody innocently for their life, and you're not getting the person who is guilty. End of story, end of discussion. And it is frustrating for me to see that this has happened, because I'm sorry, they surely don't have the evidence to put this guy away for life. They don't. And maybe, and why the FBI, maybe they do, and they just don't want to release it, but why wouldn't you release it? You would think you would release it if you're prosecuting the crime. It doesn't make a lot of sense. My guess would be is that when, for years, the FBI is not going to want to allow the file on him to get released, because I think at the end of the day, when all the information is released, is going to show you, yeah, they didn't have any evidence that he was the shooter. And, like I said, I hope they pardon him, because this was a miscarriage of justice, if you ask me. And still to this day, I mean, and I get it. Christopher Wray, the FBI director, put out a plea, do not allow this guy out. But you have to acknowledge the fact that you haven't proven that he was the shooter in any way. And for 47 years, he said, I didn't do it. And back then in the early to mid 70s, when it came to Native Americans, the U.S. government really wasn't caring about due diligence. They were just caring about making it feel like they are having success. And that's a shame. And like I said, someone did kill those FBI agents. I don't think it was Leonard Peltier. And they're going to get away with it because reasons. Nora is in Minneapolis. She wanted to chime in on Peltier. Welcome on in, Nora.
And Nora is so nervous she's almost puking here to get on the radio about this case, which I've been studying since 1979, and I got to know all these people. And of course, the killer that did kill those two FBI's close up is dead, as is almost everybody else involved in that case. And if anybody wants to find out what Leonard Peltier says in the Howard Zinn book of A People's History of the United States, there's a page of Leonard Peltier, and he tells about in 1972 when they went to the FBI and took over, not the FBI, but they took over the BIA, not FBI, the BIA building in Washington, D.C. It was American Indian Movement.
Yeah, the Bureau of Indian Affairs building. The Bureau of Indian Affairs building, correct?
Bureau of Indian Affairs. They took over the building and occupied it. Have you heard about this before?
I've heard a part of this. I'm going to defer to you because you probably know a lot more than I have, but I did hear about that. I remember that.
So at that time, Leonard Peltier was like the head of security guys. They always have like security, like a whole team of people that, try to control everything. And he was like sort of one of the head guys of security. And then the FBI wanted to go in there shooting and eliminate them. And because it was 4 days before Nixon's reelection and 4 blocks from the White House, they were not permitted to do that. And so they just took the names of all the people that they would rather have killed, including, Dennis Banks, Russell Means, etc. And they proceeded to use his name on that killing and then persecute him forever, saying it was him. And should I say more?
Well, Nora, unfortunately, Nora, I mean, you've proved, no, by all means, you've proven your expertise on this issue. By all means, I don't have enough time today for you to say much. I mean, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, if you read up on this, and I haven't read nearly as much as Nora or many other people, but from what I've read about this, it's pretty clear that Peltier is probably not the guy. It's I get it. It's 1974. It is a different world as opposed to where we're supposed to be at today, but it was pretty shoddy. And like I said, the previous year, they threw out the case against the other two because the government was so bad at this. No, you need to free him. I mean, I don't think he did it. I do not think he did it. And I think that if a honest, law enforcement review of that case and the evidence was done, I think that even they would basically say, yeah, there's, at the very least, you'd say 47 years is enough for what we feel he's done. But reality is he should be out. He should be out. 952-946-6205. Other thing I want to mention today, it is July 1st kicked in, so a bunch of new laws kicked in. A 50-cent delivery fee passed last year to be applied to purchases of at or over $100 of clothing or personal property subject to sales tax. The resulting revenue will be allocated across the state for road improvements through the new Transportation Advancement Account. The $100 threshold for the fee includes all parts of the sale, including shipping charges as well. Drugs, medical devices, food, utilities like gas, electric, and certain baby products are not included, though. Deepfake technology. 2023 law criminalizing the use of deepfakes. Videos, pictures, or audio made with artificial intelligence to appear real to sway an election has now been updated. Now, if found guilty of using deepfake technology to injure a candidate or influence an election, the law states a candidate must forfeit the nomination or office. The restriction now applies 90 days prior to the political party nomination convention or after the absentee voting period has begun prior to a presidential primary, state primary, local primary, or special election. Education policy changes. Indigenous ceremonies, cultural practices, and observances will now be added to the list of excused religious absences in the next school year. That only took you a few hundred years. Dear Lord, what do you mean those weren't included? Okay. Overdue? A little bit. Over the summer break, school districts must also adopt a language access plan for specific procedures on assistance to students and adults speaking a language other than English. Student journalists are now set to receive more free speech protections in school-sponsored media, and school districts must adopt a formal policy for student journalism. High school coaches whose contracts will not be renewed must now receive written notice from the school board no more than 60 days after the end of the regular season unless due to coach misconduct or district financial limitations. Is that a problem? I guess maybe it was. Parents must now be permitted access to their students' individual performance data and achievement report when made available to the school district, or schools are required to conduct an annual review of student learning plan to ensure they're on track for guidelines. Starting today, Minnesota's education receives $43 million funding boost, primarily focused on improving literacy through additions in the Minnesota Reading and to Ensure Academic Development Act. The $37 million directed to the READ Act provides compensation for teachers participating in various literacy training initiatives. The funds also assist a culturally responsive literacy curriculum and create a deaf and hard of hearing working group on literacy. That's a good thing. The number of voluntary pre-kindergarten seats is expanding by 5,200, bringing the total to 12,360 across the state. This expansion is possible through the $50 million set aside in 2023. News North Star Promise program will be available to eligible college students this fall, creating a path for tuition and free fee education at Minnesota public institutions and tribal colleges. It will impact an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 students in its first academic year, which is really good. Job training and economic development programs are now set to receive an extra 23 to 85 million in fiscal year. That's kind of a variance. Year included in the funding of $4.5 million for various programs. The law also grants $1 million to the city of Brooklyn Park to develop biotech initiative district, $1 million to African Immigrants Community Service, $1 million to Change Starts with Community for Violence Prevention Program, and $1 million to the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce for technical support to Black-owned small businesses. Good for you. Minnesota Tourism is also receiving a boost for the 2026 Special Olympics USA Games and infrastructure costs for Taste of Minnesota. And finally, nearly $80 million generated by the state lottery will cover more than 100 projects and environmental research projects at protecting the environment in fiscal year 2025. $208.3 million will go towards new land acquisition projects to develop state trails and local parks. That's good. The funding will also go towards projects on microplastics, food and drought modeling. $553 million for grant funding allocated is now available for projects that produce clean water sources, protect and restore the environment, enhance parks and trails, and preserve community heritage. And yeah, that's just a part of the list of all of them. A lot of things got done. And once again, thank you, DFL. A lot of things got done. And I do appreciate it. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. A few quick hits before we wrap up for the week. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Tuesday.
Hey, it's Patrick. The month of July is National Carpet Cleaning Month, and because of that, and because it's the month of the 4th, Zero Res is offering 3 rooms, Zero Resified, starting at just $129, and get a 4th room free. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. Might be wrapping up from graduation season or getting ready to host those summer barbecues, to make sure the inside of your house is Zero Res clean. Zero Res has a 4.9 rating with over 18,000 reviews, and the Zero Res 30-day Gotta Love It guarantee makes it easy to get what you pay for. Schedule your appointment today at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. Again, this month, that's 3 rooms Zero Resified, starting at just $129, and get a 4th room free. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Imagine over 7,000 voices from around the globe coming together in harmony in Minneapolis. This summer, Gala Choruses Festival 2024 comes to Minnesota. It's the world's largest LGBTQ plus singing event. From July 10th through 14th, Minneapolis will be transformed into a vibrant city of song. Join 122 choruses from places as far as China, Estonia, Finland, Ukraine, and Taiwan for 5 unforgettable days of wall-to-wall concerts, workshops, and social events at world-class venues like Orchestra Hall, the Minneapolis Convention Center, and Central Lutheran Church. And check out the many ways to connect with trans, non-binary, and intersex communities while at the festival. Find the full schedule of these events at galacourses.org. In-person tickets are available to the public, along with a stream of every performance live and on demand at galacourses.org. Celebrate love, diversity, and the power of music at Gala Choruses Festival 2024, where every voice matters. July 10th through 14th in downtown Minneapolis.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. So once again, best of shows coming up to you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As a matter of fact, this show is airing on Friday. Hi, Friday again. That's what we're doing. And then we're back live again next Monday. Looking forward to a nice Independence Day weekend. If you're traveling anywhere, driving anywhere, travel safe, drive safe, be careful, have a great Independence Day, even though it's supposed to rain all day here in the Twin Cities. A few other quick hits here. I want to call out Stubby up in Minnesota 8, the Republican there. He has basically introduced two amendments to the Interior Appropriations Bill. One would overturn the Biden administration's issued mining ban on the headwaters of the Boundary Waters. The second would automatically hand mining leases to Antofagasta so they can pursue the mine plan on the shores of Birch Lake, potentially resulting in pollution flowing through the heart of the Boundary Waters forever, which is a really horrible idea. I'm not sure if he actually mentioned Antofagasta, but if he did actually say, well, we want to give this to Antofagasta, which once again is a large Chilean mining company and not the front company for Antofagasta, Twin Metals, which is basically, once again, it's a standard operating procedure for these international mining companies. They come on in, they build a little group, give it a new name and say, see, it's just a ma and pa mining operation. And it's not, it's the Chilean mining giant Antofagasta. And want to remind everyone, Antofagasta does not care at all about anything going on in Minnesota. They could care less. They just want the minerals. They'll poison the land. They'll walk away because what their game plan is that they'll basically pay off Republicans to let them off the hook and say, gee, taxpayers, you should have stopped us from passing that bill. That's on you. Now you have to pay for the cleanup. And funny thing, you can't clean this mess up. It's 500 years. So no, don't do that. Stop it. Hey, Stauber, you moron who supported Confederates over the Minnesota First. Moron. Listen here, Stubby. You do realize there's something like 5 times more tourism jobs in the northeastern part of the state of Minnesota than mining jobs, right? Wouldn't it be pretty stupid for a handful of mining jobs to basically jeopardize the tourism industry for most of northern Minnesota? Because that sounds like it'd be really stupid, you brick dumb lug. All right? Maybe you should stop and think a second, Stubby. Anywho. Hey, let me introduce you to a Republican that's running in the Minnesota, what district is this? 14B. This is up in St. Cloud. Sue Eck, or Ick. We might go with Ick on this one, but Sue Eck, E-K, the GOP candidate for Senate House, State House seat 14B. She has got a few different things. So she opposes marriage equality. This is a Republican candidate's campaign, also had a stance on LGBTQ rights. This is a quote. I still believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. X said, I believe that all life should be protected, including the homosexual life. But once again, you can't get married. On Florida's Don't Gay Say Gay law, X said her political ideology regarding LGBTQ plus rights is similar to Florida's Parents' Rights for Education Act, sometimes referred to as the Don't Say Gay bill. So you can be gay, but just don't tell anyone you are. She spoke against birth control pills and abortions. And also, she won't comment on protecting these voters' wishes. When basically, will she vote to override abortion rights in the state of Minnesota? She would not commit to that because of course, she will vote to override it. She just doesn't want anyone to know about it. But so, shh. Yeah, she sounds horrible. But hey, the state of hate, that's the normal thing for the GOP today. Finally, this is just it's my new favorite gal pal, Marissa Simonetti. This is the person that she is running for the Hennepin County 6th race, who's now had the Republicans pull their sponsorship, who's just a mess. She's put a video up online with her and her kid bragging about taking the spider that she bought and threw down the stairs and taking it back to the PetSmart in St. Louis Park, and that anyone could go buy this and throw it down the stairs at someone. Yeah, she's wow. Speaking of fireworks, boom. Native Roots Radio is up next. Have a good rest of the week. We are back on Monday. Till then, see ya.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting